The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Talk Time with Val. I'm your hostess for the mostest, Valainistima, and tonight I'm the one with the mostest energy. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Jimmy, how you doing? We'll find out.
I'm doing fine.
I think Jimmy's all busy. He's been ignoring me. I don't feel the love. I don't feel the je ne sais quoi. Where's the je ne sais quoi, Jimmy? What happened to it? What'd you do? Alright, so because I'm being ignored by my not-so-favorite producer at this moment, I'm going to actually get into the theme of what we're going to be discussing tonight. And actually something near and dear to my heart. We are going to be discussing spirituality, religion, culture, and peace, exploring the realities of religion in our modern life. So, the fact is that it is said that religion is the way of man. Spirituality is the way of God. And yet, the aspect of God, the interpretation of God, the actual reality of what each individual believes God is, or each sect, or each culture, or each religion, or whatever, is very, very different. In Sikhism, if a man sings of God and hears of him, lets love of God sprout within him, all his sorrows shall vanish, and in his mind, God will bestow abiding peace. So, what is the tenement there? Peace. A Muslim is one who surrenders to the will of Allah and is an establisher of peace. While Islam means establishment of peace, Muslim means one who establishes peace through his actions and conduct. That's from Islam. In Hinduism, the Lord lives in the hearts of every creature. He turns them round and round upon the wheel of Maya. Take refuge utterly in him. By his grace you will find supreme peace and a state which is beyond all change. In Judaism, the whole of the Torah is for the purpose of promoting peace. In Christianity, all things exist for world peace, perfect liberty by Kyodan. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Excuse me. One of my favorites, from The Sacred Pipe by Black Elk, Lakota Sioux Medicine Man. Peace comes within the souls of men when they realize their relationship, their openness with the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells a Wakan Tanka, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. So, we're looking at this concept of peace throughout religion, and it occurs to me that religion is not really the most peaceful thing in the world, is it? I mean, I wish Jimmy was talking to me right now, because I'm sure he would have much to say on this, as would Paul, but religion really and truly has been gained through acts of war. It has gained its purpose, it has gained its followings, it has spread itself in a lot of ways through acts of war. At least some religions have, others have not. So I want to kind of focus on some of the little known. Jainism. Jainism believes that the universe and all its substances or entities are eternal. It has no beginning or end with respect to time. The universe runs on its own accord by its own cosmic laws. All the substances change or modify their forms continuously. Nothing can be destroyed or created in the universe. In science, we are taught that energy is ever constant, ever changing. It cannot be created nor destroyed. There is no need of someone to create or manage the affairs of the universe. Hence, Jainism does not believe in God as a creator, survivor, sustainer, or destroyer of the universe. However, Jainism does believe in God, although not as a creator, believes in God as a perfect being. When a person destroys all of his karmas, he becomes a liberated soul. He resides in a perfect, blissful state of moksha. He possesses infinite knowledge, infinite vision, infinite power, and infinite bliss. This living being is a god of Jain religion. Every living being has the potential to become God. Hence, Jains do not have one god, but Jain gods are innumerable, and their number is continuously increasing as more living beings attain liberation. Jains believe that since the beginning of the time of every living being, every living soul, because of its ignorance, is associated with karmas. The main purpose of the religion is to remove these karmas which are attached to the soul and become a liberated soul. There are many types of karmas. However, they are broadly classified into the following 8 categories. So you have punya karma. It generates delusion in the soul in regard to its own true nature and makes it identify itself with other external substances. Anavaraniya karma covers the soul's power of perfect knowledge. Darasna Parina karma covers the soul's power of perfect vision. Antaraya karma. It obstructs the natural quality or energy of the soul, such as charity and willpower. This prevents the soul from attaining liberation. It also prevents a living being from doing something good and enjoyable. Vedniya karma. It obscures the blissful nature of the soul and thereby produces pleasure and pain. Nama karma. It obscures the non-corporeal existence of the soul and produces the body with its limitations, qualities, faculties, etc. Gotra karma. It obscures the soul's characteristics of dignity and determines the caste, family, social standing, and personality. Then you have Ayu karma. It determines the span of life in one birth, thus obscuring the soul's nature for external existence. Now, these all sound pretty fancy, right? They sound pretty existential in certain ways. It determines while traveling on the path of spiritual progress, a person destroys all 8 types of his karmas in the following sequence. First, punya or delusion, then jnana or knowledge, then vision, then natural qualities, all 3 together at this time. He attains Kevalgyan, and he is known as Arahant. Arahant is also known as Tetikhana, Jina, Arhat, Kevali, or Nigrata. Sounds kind of complicated, right? Here's the gist of it. The first 4 karmas, they obscure all the natural qualities of the soul. The last 4 karmas do not affect the qualities of the soul, but they're related to the physical body. Once a person destroys all of their obscure qualities of the soul, the natural qualities of the soul, then they will be able to destroy the ones that are pertaining to a physical body. And here's the thing, or I think I'm getting a little bit too deep into it for some. I just got a message. So let's take a look at Jainism from the basic, right? What is Jainism? What are the basic beliefs of Jainism?
User left your channel.
Mahavira, just like Buddha, isn't the first prophet of his religion. In Jainism, like Buddhism, there is a belief in reincarnation, which eventually leads to liberation. Neither of these religions, their religious philosophy centers around worship, but Jainism is different than Buddhism in its aesthetic beliefs. So, what does that mean? What is Jainism? It's a philosophy of religion. It it displays characteristics or elements that would be termed as religion, but it's more of a tradition of absolute knowledge. What do believers hold as most important? What is the ultimate source of value and significance? For many, but not all religions, it is a given that there's some form of agency that's portrayed as a deity or a god. And we've discussed the fact that in Jainism, God resides within each of us. We each have the ability to, to become gods in our own, according to this religion. Now, Jainism was born in India about the same period as Buddhism. It was established by Mahavira in about 500 BC. He was born near Patna in what is now Bihar state, and Mahavira, like Buddha, belonged to the warrior caste. Mahavira was called Jina, meaning the big winner, and from this name was derived the name of the religion, Jainism. In many senses, Jainism is similar to Buddhism. Both developed as a dissension to the Brahmanic philosophy that was dominant during the period in northeast India. Both share a belief in reincarnation, which eventually leads to liberation. Jainism is different to Buddhism in its aesthetic beliefs. Both religions emphasize non-violence, but non-violence is the main core in Jainism. Mahavira, just like Buddha, isn't the first prophet of his religion. In Jainism, like Buddhism, there is a belief in reincarnation which eventually leads to liberation. And neither of these religions have philosophy that surrounds worship. Both of these religions emphasize non-violence, and okay, I'm repeating myself, and non-violence is the main. Alright. Basically, let's look at this. Jains believe that everything has life. This also includes stones, sands, trees, and every other thing. The fact that trees give us oxygen or breathe came to be known to the world of science in the 20th century. Mahavira, who believed that everything has life and believed in non-violence, practically didn't eat anything, causing himself to starve to death. He was extremely ascetic and walked around completely naked because of his renouncement of life. After years of hardship and meditation, his religious followers, he attained enlightenment. Thereafter, he preached Jainism for about 30 years and then died at Pava in 527 BC. Mahavira's religious followers are less extreme than him in their diets. They are vegetarians, but the religious Jains will do everything possible to prevent hurting any being. They won't walk in fields where there are insects to prevent the possibility of stepping on them. They also cover their mouth to prevent the possibility of swallowing small invisible microbes. They mostly do not work in professions where there is a possibility of killing any living being, like in agriculture, instead of professions like banking and business. But it is not clear what came first: businessmen who adopted Jain philosophy because it was easy for them to follow, or Jainish philosophy which convinced the Jains to adopt non-violent professions. So there are two Jain philosophies: Tibetemba and Tigamba. Digambar monks, like Mahavira, don't wear any clothes, but normally they don't walk like that outside of their temples. The Digambars include among them only men. The Shivatambars monks wear white clothes and they can include women. So what were the teachings of Lord Mahavira in Jainism? Lord Mahavira was born on March 30th, 599 BC and attained the Nirvana in the year of 527 BC at the age of 72, which in that time period was a pretty grand old age. He was a contemporary of Lord Buddha. He was the 24th and the last of the Tirthankars. The present form of Jainism was shaped by him. The cardinal principles of Jainism are non-violence, multiplicity of views, non-possessiveness, non-stealing, and chastity. The first and third are quite simple to understand. So that's non-violence and non-possessiveness. But the second one needs some explanation. It is dealt under multiplicity of viewpoints and relativism in the Jain literature. Difference of viewpoints quite often add to the knowledge that, and one should infer only after hearing diverse views on any subject, then one should make a conclusion. If it is not done, then the conclusions reached could be biased or incorrect. It provides for the tolerance for the views of others. One can have a better perception only after hearing others. For example, we are all familiar with the story of the 8 blind men and an elephant. Well, I'm not sure if we're all familiar with that story. Jimmy, do you know that story? 8 blind men and the elephant? Alright. So, let's see if we can look that up here really quick. So you have an idea. So, it is a parable, and see if I can get it for you. It's an Indian parable. Well, it's an Indian story or fable. It is a story of a group of blind men who have never come across an elephant before, and who learn and conceptualize what the elephant is like by touching it. Each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part, such as the side or the tusk. Then they describe the elephant based on their partial experience, and their descriptions are in complete disagreement on what an elephant is. In some versions, they come to suspect that the other person is dishonest, and they come to blows. The moral of the parable is that humans have a tendency to project their partial experiences as the whole truth, ignoring other people's partial experiences, and one should consider that one may be partially right and may have partial information. So, there is an alternate version to the parable. It discusses normal men experiencing a large statue on a dark night. Basically, it's the same thing. It is that we have a perception or a concept of something, and we decide that it is the truth. We decide it is the absolute. We conceive of anything else. We cannot conceive that anything is different. Okay, let me give you an example from the way I remember it. So a group of blind men heard that a strange animal called an elephant had been brought to the town, but none of them were aware of its shape and form. Out of curiosity, they said, we must inspect and know it by touch, of which we are capable. So they sought it out. And when they found it, they groped about it. In the case of the first person whose hand landed on the trunk, he said, this being is like a thick snake. For another whose hand reached its ear, it seemed like a kind of a fan. As for another person whose hand was upon its leg, they said, the elephant is a pillar, like a tree trunk. The blind man who placed his hand upon its side said, the wall. Another who felt its tail described it as a rope. The last felt its tusk. stating that the elephant is that which is hard, smooth, and like a spear. So the blind men then discover their disagreements. They suspect that the others might not be telling the truth, and they come to blows. Here's the thing. I mean, think about life. Think about everyday living. Think about just communicating with the people you love, or people you hate, or the people that you work with, or however, whatever. Now think about the range of truth and fallacies that occur in everyday life. You might be saying the same thing as the other person, but because of the way it's said, there's misinterpretation. You might all be describing an elephant, or let's call the elephant an elephant, it's God in the room. You might be discussing God, but because you're from a different religious background, it comes to blows, or it gets heated, or it becomes antagonistic. Let me ask you something, right? For the most part, isn't God about peace, love, understanding, community, heart? Isn't God about devotion, kindness, courtesy? I mean, isn't God about ethics and substantial morality? So, I mean, I think it would be very, very, very enlightening to have a room with a Buddhist, a Jainist, and a Hindu, and have the three of them speak about their beliefs. In Buddhism, a friend of mine today, Jeff, he said they walk with a staff, a scepter, so that they can hit the ground to scare away any bugs or insects that may be there, so that they might not accidentally kill something. In Jainism, they put a cloth over their mouth so that they don't accidentally, swallow microbes. In Hinduism, they believe that life is eternal, ever constant, ever changing. Life is nothing but the soul. And people think that, oh, there are thousands of gods. They're not. They're one belief. Each of these stories is something to depict the human constant. That's pretty much what it is. I mean, you have parables and stories and from different scriptures around. Have you ever read the Mahabharata? Seriously, have you? Because I'm going to tell you, it is one of my favorite books of all time. It is so freaking epic. They've made movies out of it. They've made shows. I mean, I remember growing up, sitting down every time it came on, just waiting for the next episode of the Mahabharata. When I was very, very little, my brother got me a book. It's about kings and gods and rulers and about greed and love and lust and about, attaining spiritual relief, and it's about saints and sinners, and there's war, and there's, oh good lord, there's like pretty much everything that you could possibly hope for. It is an epic battle that is fought by a family torn asunder, and yet it is the perfect analogy for the concept of the soul, what the soul faces every day. The Mahabharata is one of two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. It is amazing. I will encourage you all get a copy of the book. Go watch the show. I mean, it is an ancient story where an ancient epic tale. The main story revolves around two branches of a family. So you have the Pandavas, you have the Kauravas, and they all reside um, together, really. It's two brothers whose families are, well, split, separated. Now, the Pandavas are a little bit more supposedly noble, and yet they have their fallacies, their frailties, their, how do I put it? They have their vices too. Okay? The Pandavas and the Kauravas they battle for the throne of Hastinapur, and interwoven into this narrative are several similar stories about people, dead or living. The philosophical discourses of Krishna, Dwapanyan, Vyasa himself, a character in the epic, composed it, as according to tradition he dictated the verses and Ganesh wrote them down. At 100,000 verses, it is the longest epic poem ever written, generally thought to have been composed in the 4th century BCE or earlier. Events in the epic play out in the Indian subcontinent and surrounding areas. It was first narrated by a student of Vyasa at a snake sacrifice of the great-grandson of one of the major characters of the story, including within it the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata is one of the most important texts of ancient Indian, actually the world, literature. So, here's a little snippet for you. Shantanu, the king of Hastinapur, was married to Ganga. Ganga was the female human personification of the Ganges, with whom he had a son called Tevrat. Several years later, when Tevrat had grown up to be an accomplished prince, Shantanu fell in love with Satyavati. Her father refused to let her marry the king unless the king promised that Satyavati's son and descendants would inherit the throne. Unwilling to deny Devrat his rights, Shantanu declined to do so, but the prince, on coming to know of the matter, rode over to Satyavati's house, vowed to renounce the throne and to remain celibate throughout his life so that his children, his offspring, would not vie for the throne themselves. The prince then took Satyavati home to the palace so that the king, his father, could marry her. On account of the terrible vow that he had taken that day, Devrat came to be known as Bhishma. I have goosebumps. Shantanu was so pleased with his son that he granted to Devrat the boon of choosing the time of his own death. In time, Shantanu and Satyavati had 2 sons. Soon after that, Shantanu died. Satyavati's sons, still being little kids, minors, so the affairs of the kingdom were managed by Bhishma and Satyavati. By the time the sons reached adulthood, the elder one had died in a skirmish with some Pandavas, so the younger son, Vichitravira, was enthroned. Bhishma then abducted the 3 princesses of a neighboring kingdom and brought them over to Hastinapur so that he could, the new king, could wed them. The eldest of these 3 princesses declared that she was in love with someone else, so she was let go. The other 2 princesses were married to I can never say that name, Vichitravira, who died soon afterwards childless. Then you have Dashrath, Pandu, and Vidur. So that the family line did not die out, Satyavati summoned her son Vyasa to impregnate the 2 queens. Vyasa had been born to Satyavati of a great sage named Parashar before her marriage to Shantanu. According to the laws of the day, a child born to an unwed mother was taken to be a stepchild of the mother's husband. By that token, Vyasa could be considered Shantanu's son and could be used to perpetuate the Kuru clan that ruled Hastinapur. Thus, by that custom, the two queens each had son of Vyasa. To the elder queen was born a blind son called Dashrath, and to the younger was born an otherwise healthy but extremely pale son called Pandu. To a maid of these queens was born the son of Vasya called Vidur. So, Vyasa was kind of getting it on there. Bhishma brought up these three boys with great care. Dashrath grew up to be the strongest of all the princes in the country. Pandu was extremely skilled in warfare and archery, and Vidur knew all the branches of learning, politics, and statesmanship. With the boys grown, it was now time to fill up the empty throne of Hastinapur. Dashrath, the eldest, was bypassed because the laws barred a disabled person from being king. Pandu instead was crowned. Bhishma ignored Dashrath's marriage with Bhishma negotiated Dashrath's marriage with Kandari and Pandu's with Kunti and Madri. Pandu expanded the kingdom by conquering the surrounding areas and brought in considerable war booty. With things running smoothly in the country and with its coffers full, Pandu asked his elder brother to look after the state affairs and retired to the forest with his two wives for some time off. A few years later, Kunti returned to Hastinapur. With her were 5 little boys, and the bodies of Pandu and Madri. The 5 boys were the sons of Pandu, born to his two wives and bought through the custom from the gods. Let me tell you something, okay? The eldest was born of Dharma. Basically, impregnated by a god. The second of Vayu. The third of Indra. The youngest, the twins, of the Ashvins. In the meanwhile, Dashrath and Gandhari had children of their own, 100 sons and 1 daughter. So, Dashrath might have been blind, but yeah. The Kuru's elders performed the last rites for Pandu and Madri, and Kunti and the children were welcomed into the palace. Well, kind of. This is like a basic storyline, and it kind of really subjugates a lot of what the story is about, okay? So all of the 105 princes were subsequently entrusted to the care of a teacher, Kripa, at first and additionally Drona later on. Drona's school in Hastinapur attracted several other boys. Karan of the Sutta clan was one such boy. It was here that hostilities quickly developed between the sons of Dashrath, collectively called the Kauravas, patronymic of their ancestor Kuru, and the sons of Pandu, collectively called the Pandavas, patronymic of their father. Duryodhana, the eldest Kaurava, tried and failed to poison Bhima, the second Pandava. Karan, because of his rivalry in archery with the third Pandava, Arjuna, allied himself with Duryodhana. In time, the princes learned all they could from their teachers, and the Kuru elders decided to hold a public skills exhibition of the princes. It was during this exhibition that the citizens became plainly aware of the hostilities between the two branches of the royal family. Duryodhana and Bhima had a mace fight that had to be stopped before things turned seriously ugly. Okay, Karan, uninvited as he was not a Kuru prince, challenged Arjuna and was insulted on account of his own non-royal birth, and was crowned king of a vassal state on the spot by Duryodhana. It was also around this time that questions began to be raised about Dashrath's occupying the throne, since he was supposed to be holding it only in trust for Pandu, the crowned king. To keep the peace in the realm, Dashrath declared the eldest Pandava, Yudhishthira, as the crown prince and heir apparent. So this is where things get dicey. I mean, before that it was pretty, you know what, I'm going to leave a a little something for you guys to kind of look into yourself. Let me just tell you, next comes a story of exile, of love, of lust, of dance, of betrayal, of murder, of unrequited love, of peace, and of the most epic battle of war. It incorporates Hanuman, which, I mean, seriously, if you don't know who Hanuman is, go look it up. It incorporates the aspects of strength, wealth, knowledge, power, greed, and you know what? Also true understanding, the acts of good, karma. It is pretty much the most epic book ever written, in my opinion. And if you have not read it, if you have not seen it, go take a look, because it is completely worth it. Now, we have discussed, I got a little sidetracked there with the Mahabharata, but we've discussed some things on Jainism, on Hinduism. Take a little look. Well, Buddhism. Because in my head, my mind, Buddhism is not really a religion, it's a way of life. But if you ask anybody else, they'll say Buddhism is a major global religion with a complex history and society. And it is, historians estimate that the founder of Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, lived from 566 to 480 BC. He was the son of an Indian warrior king, and Siddhartha led an extravagant life through his early adulthood, reveling in the privileges of his social caste. But when he got bored of the indulgences of royal life, Gautama wandered into the world in search. After encountering an old man, an ill man, a corpse, and an ascetic, Gautama was convinced that suffering lay at the end of all existence. He renounced his princely title and became a monk, depriving himself of worldly possessions in the hope of comprehending the truth of the world around him. The culmination of his search came while meditating beneath a tree, where he finally understood how to be free from suffering and ultimately to achieve salvation. Following this epiphany, Gautama was known as the Buddha, meaning the Enlightened One. The Buddha spent the remainder of his life journeying about in India, teaching others what he had come to understand. And what exactly did he come to understand? The Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths comprise the essence of Buddha's teachings. Though they leave much unexplained, they are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. Or simply put, suffering exists, it has a cause, it has an end, and it has a cause to bring about its end. The notion of suffering is not intended to convey a negative worldview, but rather a pragmatic perspective that deals with the world as it is and attempts to rectify it. The concept of pleasure is not denied, but acknowledged as being fleeting. Pursuit of pleasure can only continue what is ultimately an unquenchable thirst. The same logic belies an understanding of happiness. In the end, only death are certain and unavoidable. The Four Noble Truths are a contingency plan for dealing with the suffering humanity faces. Suffering of a physical kind, or of a mental nature. The first truth identifies the presence of suffering. The second truth, on the other hand, seeks to determine the cause of suffering. In Buddhism, desire and ignorance lie at the roots of suffering. By desire, Buddhists refer to craving pleasure, material goods, and immortality, all of which are wants that can never be satisfied. As a result, desiring them can only bring suffering. Ignorance, in comparison, relates to not seeing the world as it actually is. Without the capacity for mental concentration and insight, Buddhism explains one's mind is left undeveloped, unable to grasp the true nature of things. Vices, such as greed, envy, hatred, and anger, derive from so. The third noble truth, the truth of the end of suffering, has dual meaning, suggesting either the end of suffering in this life on earth or in the spiritual life through achieving nirvana. When one has achieved nirvana, which is the transcendent state free from suffering on our worldly cycle of birth and rebirth, spiritual enlightenment has been reached. The fourth noble truth charts the method for attaining the end of suffering, known to Buddhists as the Noble Eightfold Path. The steps of the Noble Eightfold Path are right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Moreover, there are 3 teams into which the path is divided. You have good moral conduct, so that is understanding, thought, and speech. Meditation and mental development, that is your action, livelihood, and effort. And wisdom or insight, and this is mindfulness and concentration. Karma. Contrary to what is accepted in contemporary society, the Buddhist interpretation of karma does not refer to preordained fate. Karma refers to good or bad actions a person takes during their lifetime. Good actions, which involve either the absence of bad actions or actual positive acts such as generosity, righteousness, and meditation, bring about happiness in the long run. Bad actions such as lying, stealing, or killing bring about unhappiness in the long run. The weight that actions carry is determined by 5 conditions: frequent repetitive action, determined intentional action, action performed without regret, action against extraordinary persons, and action towards those who have helped one in the past. Finally, there is also neutral karma, which derives from acts such as breathing, eating, or sleeping. Neutral karma has no benefits or costs. In Buddhism, there is a cycle of rebirth. Karma plays out in the Buddhism cycle of rebirth. There are 6 separate planes into which any living being can be reborn. 3 fortunate realms and 3 unfortunate realms. Those with favorable positive karma are reborn into one of the fortunate realms, the realm of demigods, the realm of gods, and the realm of men. While the demigods and gods enjoy gratification unknown to men, they also suffer unceasing jealousy and envy. The realm of man is considered the highest realm of rebirth. Humanity lacks some of the extravagances of the demigods, but it is also free from their relentless conflict. Similarly, while inhabitants of the 3 unfortunate realms of animals, ghosts, and hell suffer untold suffering, suffering of the realm of man is far less. The realm of man also offers one other aspect lacking in the other 5 planes: an opportunity to achieve enlightenment. Given the sheer number of living things, to be born human is to Buddhists a precious chance at spiritual bliss, a rarity that one should not forsake. Today, I was talking to a friend, and They got me thinking about life, love, religion, man's love of religion, and man's love of God. And we all know that the opposite side of the coin for love is hate. Religion breeds a lot of things. It can really breed disharmony or harmony. It can inspire people towards great, beautiful acts of generosity and kindness, devotion and purity. And it can inspire the most horrific, gruesome, unimaginable things. You look at religion and people say they are willing to die in the name of their religion or in the name of their God. And giving up your life is, well, it's your choice to do that, yes. But it does not show, in my opinion, a true love of God. To me, life is the ultimate gift that God has given us. The ability to think, the ability to act, the ability to love, to hate, to bleed, to breathe, the ability to hold your kitty in your arms and pet her, or to gaze into the eyes, or the ability to imagine 1,000 concepts, discuss a million ideas, and dream a billion dreams. Take a trillion breaths. And it also comes down to the fact that you love chocolate. Or it also boils down to that one moment you remember. That one moment in time, everything stood still. The night air was dewy. Feel the warmth breath across. You thought, your be all and your end. That flutter of your heart, that song that sung in your soul, that laughter that bubbled in your throat, that gasp of. And then you open your eyes and you look up and you see in that moment your perfect mate. Love. Carnal? Maybe. What about other kinds of love? Reading a good story and getting a thrill of goosebumps. Hearing a song and feeling the depths of that melody. Seeing a sunset. I love sunset. Honestly, I do. But I do think that sunrises are even more beautiful. Feeling the whisper breeze on your skin. Feeling the dew as it settles, covering pretty much everything. Purifying, honestly purifying, as light comes up over the horizon, spreads out, fingers of warmth seek the hearts and souls of everybody it touches. And you know, it inspires you, well, it inspires me, the Caribbean girl in me, to be like, I woke up this morning, smiled at the rising sun, 3 little birds on my doorstep, singing sweet song of melodies pure and true. This is my message to you. I'm gonna tell you, there is a depth of humanity, a depth of spirituality, a depth of cosmic understanding that spans all religions. It is cross-cultural. We can choose to relate these conflicts. But today, I chose what I believe to be the most peaceful of religions. Even though, come on, epic wars in Hinduism, in the books anyway. But I chose the main ones, Jainism and Buddhism. Of course, Hinduism, because I am. And I wanted to show that peace, love, non-conflict are valid ideas. They're valid views. That we should embrace these ideas, these views. We need to embrace each other with understanding, with open-minded concepts. We need to be open to the fact that somebody else has an opinion. We have the right. We are wrong sometimes. We are right sometimes. And we need to realize we are not perfect, and we have no right to take someone else's beliefs away from them. We people, as people, we have a responsibility to our future generation, more so to ourselves, to understand there is so much in the world, so much suffering, so much hatred, so much anger, so much destruction, that if we would just take a moment of our time each day to uplift someone else, to give a little to someone else, whether
Peace out,
it's a
brothers.
word of wisdom or of inspiration, that's all that we really need. Just to generally not be idiots, to not be horrendous individuals. There are noble truths in our world. We've discussed Jainism, we've discussed Buddhism. You know what? I'm going to invite you, listeners, to discover your own personal noble truths. Excuse me. What do you want to live as? What do you want to awaken to? What do you feel is enlightenment? What is your goal in life? Is it to make money, have a big house, buy a big car, have a gorgeous spouse and beautiful kids, and be successful in your job? Or is it to buy a mountain somewhere and build an animal sanctuary and breathe and live and find peace? I mean, both sound pretty great, right? What is your personal truth? What is your personal goal? What do you want in life? Because here's the thing. If you start dreaming every day, taking a step towards that dream, trying to build it into something more, into reality, a little bit more every day, maybe in building that, you'll have less time to tear others down. Maybe in taking steps forward to better ourselves, we would have less time as human beings to focus on what our neighbor has, what they don't have, how I can get what they have, how I can tear them down so I can feel better about myself. Maybe if we focused on our own noble truths, we would find that society and life can be a little bit more noble. What do you think, Jimmy? I don't know if Jimmy's talking to me. Just popped back in, but he's not saying anything. You're lighting up, but I'm not hearing you, Jimmy. But anyway.
That's because I shut my mic off.
Ah, there you go. So what do you think, Jimmy? Are you going to find your noble truth? I hope you do.
I hope so.
I do.
Alright, you got about 30 seconds.
Well, I was actually wrapping up. I was going to say that's all the time we have tonight. And thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Talk Time with Val. Join me again next week. I'll have a couple of visitors and we'll be back on a regular time schedule. Remember to call in and share your ideas with us. Until then, be safe, be well, and blessed be.